Well, hey guys, welcome to Season 3 of the Straight Outta Prison podcast. My name is James K. Jones, and this is my story.
And I am Haley Jones, and this is his story that has now become a part of my story. Season 3.
We made it.
What's up? I feel like we need to go out to dinner to celebrate. You are out of prison.
I'm free at last.
Driving off.
Free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last.
Driving away, I should say. So we ended up last episode, you were literally driving off the compound.
Yes, with Tommy Thomas.
Yes, and you had talked about, you had dreamed and thought about, and people were asking if you were going to kiss the dirt of the free ground, but you decided, ain't nobody got time for that.
I had always planned on doing that. That had been my plan for almost 7 years. But somehow that morning, everything was going so fast. We got to the end of the driveway, and Tommy was like stopping. And I think he wanted to take like a picture or do something cheesy like that. And I just said, I don't want to do it. I'm good. Just get me out of here.
Keep driving.
Just get me out of here.
Don't stop.
I don't want to do it. So we were speeding away.
I mean, do you remember the feeling you had when you were in the car?
It was very dreamy. It was like a dream. I think the biggest emotion was seeing myself drive away from there and remembering the pain and the fear and all the stuff coming in there, the 3 years prior.
Right.
And because, that was a scary place to be.
Yeah.
And then just trying to sit on that prison van and process and all the trees and all, because West Jefferson is in the middle of the woods. It's like 45 minutes from Birmingham.
Yeah.
It is like out in the middle of nowhere. And, I felt like I was going into hell when I was going there. But the way that all the things that happened, the way that I was changed while I was there, like I was driving away and I was free from prison, but I was also free on the inside in a way that I hadn't been when I went there. So it was a weird. The emotions were.
It was almost like a culmination of that process and very symbolic. You driving away in the car was very symbolic of what had happened on the inside.
Yeah, it was a day. It was one of the best days of my life.
Wow.
It was crazy.
So let's talk about that. Just being in the car. I mean, when's the last time you were in a car?
The last time I'd been in a car probably would have been in a regular car, like 7 years. But then I was in a couple of cop cars when I first got arrested in Florida. They throw you in the back to transport you. But that had been...
that was a little different feeling, I guess.
Yeah. But then even with that, after that, all the transfers were like transfer vans or buses or, prison vans. So I hadn't been in a car, in ages. It was crazy. I mean, and just I got on clothes. I got on real underwear because, you don't get real underwear in there. You have to wear those stitched up boxers. It was just, it's a crazy day.
Surreal. So what time was it that you were driving off or that he picked you up?
It was early. When you make parole, they try to get you out really fast because then you're off their roster.
Right.
They don't have to deal with you. You're done. So they try to get you out early. So it was about 7:30. It was still early in the morning, and it was a crazy feeling.
So where were you heading? Where was your first stop? What's the plan?
Well, I was paroled to go to Shepherd's Fold, which is a halfway house in Birmingham. Joe Brumbach was in charge of that. So when you get paroled to a halfway house, they are your people. Mm-hmm. So he was in charge. They're responsible for you.
Okay.
Not just like morally, but like through the parole board and
physically responsible.
Yeah, they're responsible for you. So I knew that he was my person. Like I had to do whatever he said. Mm-hmm. And the first big surprise I got was Tommy had told him, we're gonna be doing all these things, and Joel said, well, why don't you just spend the night with Tommy and Brenda? They said it was okay, and we'll see you in the morning. And that was just like a shocker. Like I don't even got to go today. So
you had a full 24 hours.
Yeah, before I had to report it. Well, I had to report to the parole office. Mm-hmm. I had to register with the sheriff's office as a convicted felon, and then I had to report in the Shepherd's Fold. So there was a lot going on. Like there's a lot of, I guess, I's to dot and T's to cross. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to make sure that there was no missteps in anything that I did because I was keeping my freedom.
Did you have like a checklist of those things that you just mentioned, like checking into the parole and this that you knew? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, they give you like a packet
Okay.
of all the things, and then my Aunt Sue, she didn't come pick me up, but she had always been in charge of all my legal stuff, so she had did her own list and sent it to Tommy. And the reason why he picked me up was just logistical, because I was staying in Birmingham. I would be close to, I was going to church with them, and he wanted to. And then, my mom, she had fell on some steps and cracked her spine about 2 years before that. So she had been just in a bad place with her health. Yeah. And had to retire, couldn't work. And then, she gained a little bit of weight. So she was like ashamed of herself. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, she didn't want to be seen by people. Oh. So she had literally locked herself in the house. So she hadn't like really been out of the house but once or twice in like 3 years. Oh, wow. So, and I didn't, I was ready to go, you know what I'm saying? Right. And so Tommy really wanted to, because that church, the World Victory Church, they were a big part of that, especially the first 6 months or so.
When you say that, they were a big part of
just me getting out of prison.
You getting out, yeah.
Just helping me take my next steps and, figuring out what I need to do. Right. But they saw it as, because they were a small church, I hadn't been, they were maybe a year or two, they were fairly new, non-denominational church, and they had gotten into prison ministry because of their radio show that we were listening to, and we wrote them a letter, and that's how they started doing prison ministry. So everybody was like very excited about that. That's neat. So it was good stuff.
Okay, so your first stop.
Yeah, well, I was, there's a lot of things I wanted to do the first day. I wanted to call my mom, I wanted to see, I wanted to do all the things. Right. But probably more than anything is I want to get something to eat. Yeah. Because brother was hungry.
So, yeah, because you had talked about how the food and in the Alabama prisons was terrible.
It was awful. Yeah. I mean, it was worse than like dog food. It was bad. Like anything that I complained about in Florida, the jail or prison food in Florida, paled in comparison to what we got at Dawson, because we were like malnourished. We didn't, it was, the food there was awful. It was bad. We didn't get much of anything. It was pretty bad. So,
okay, so where did you want to eat? Where did you want your first meal to be?
It was breakfast time, so I'm a big Waffle House guy, and I want a Waffle House or somewhere with a buffet. So he he wanted to take me to Shoney's, and I was like, Shoney's? But this was 1999, and there were still the Shoney's. The Shoney's was still around in the way that had been when I was growing up, where you had the breakfast buffet where everything was there. Mm-hmm. And there was one, I was on Oxmoor Road, right outside of Birmingham, that we stopped at. And I felt like a kid in a candy store. Like, I couldn't process like the food, and it was just, I'm pretty sure I ate some of everything that was there. And then, but when I got, there was cereal, and then they had milk. And then I was so excited about it, and then I looked up and Tommy was crying.
Wait, you were so excited about the
milk.
And how like, were you just like, oh my God, milk? Like,
I was just excited to see. I haven't had, by that time it had been almost 4 years since I had milk. Like, we didn't have milk.
What did you have? Well, did you have cereal, I guess, in prison? Or?
Well, if they did cereal, they would take that powdered milk and then they would put water in it and shake it up. Oh. So that was the milk. We didn't have milk. And I was excited about the milk, and he was bawling, and I was like, what's the matter? Like, what's the matter with you? And he was like, I've just never seen anybody get so excited about milk. So it was, I kind of felt bad for him, but I was just like, well, I haven't had milk. It's been a long time since I had milk. It had been a long time since I had juice. I didn't, everything we had was powdered or processed or just disgusting.
Well, this is a random question, but how did you... I always think, okay, so who paid for the Shoney's? Like, did you have any money? Did you have a bank account?
A bank account?
I don't know. Are these things, like, set up for you?
No, we had nothing. Okay. I left prison with a paper sack. I had my 2 Bibles, my Strong's Concordance, my Vines Greek Dictionary, and all my notebooks. That was all I took with me.
Naturally.
They gave me a $10 check or money order. I can't remember. They gave me
I remember you mentioning that. Yeah.
And that was what I had. But my family had, my mom, my granny, my Aunt Sue, everybody had like sent Tom, because Tommy was he was on my parole plan to be like my practical person.
Right.
And so they had sent him, he was set with money.
Oh, so they had sent him money?
For me, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, cover everything.
Right, yeah. I mean, I just don't know how it works. So, yeah, okay, cool.
No, I didn't have anything. I didn't have an ID. I had a prison ID, and that was about it. Yeah. So we got through that, and then I just can't tell you how good that meal was. It was amazing.
I bet. After
it was
7
crazy.
years.
But then we were going to get back in the car, and I was like, I want to call my mom. I need to do the things that matter. Now that my belly's full, I need to call my mama. And so he gets in the car and hands me this little black thing called a cell phone, which I'd never seen, or I didn't know what that was. So
that is pretty crazy. So the time you were in prison is when all the cell phone and
that's when everything
came out. Yeah.
Well, when I got arrested in 1993, my Aunt Denise, her husband Kenny's an entrepreneur, and he's a very successful businessman. So he's always like buying her the latest technology gadgets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he had bought her a Mercedes that had this bag in the console there with the phone in it.
Oh, my dad had one of those, yeah. It was literally like a box bag.
It was crazy.
It was a phone, yeah.
But I wanted to talk on it, so she would let me call, and I'd be like, when you get on the highway, call me, because I want to talk on the phone, on the car phone. So she would do that. But that was the latest technology I knew of.
So then when Tommy handed you this, what kind of cell phone was it? Or a mobile phone for our international listeners?
It was like a black flip phone.
Okay, so it was a flip phone, yeah.
Well, I didn't know how to open it. So, and he was driving, he couldn't believe that. I was like, I don't know what this is. This is like Star Trek. I don't know. So he showed me how to flip it open, and then he was just like, you just dial the number. And so I dialed my mom's number, and then I couldn't get her on the phone. So I had my stepbrother's number, so I called him and was trying to get to my mom. And he answered the phone, but I could barely hear him. And when I talked, I couldn't hear myself talk. So I was like hollering in the phone. Later on, he was laughing and told me, you was just screaming your head off. But I didn't know how to talk on the phone. Mm-hmm. But, eventually.
I didn't know how to talk on the phone.
Well, no, like with a regular, like a home phone, you can hear you can hear yourself. And that one I couldn't. And it might have been because we were in the car and the background noise. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was very difficult. But I finally got on the phone with my mom, and, her tears of joy, and she said, "Real? Is it for real?" All that stuff, and it was, and of course, when are you coming to see me? Like, Mom, you gotta give me a minute. I gotta figure out. I got a lot to figure out, but I'm coming to see you. But there's a lot I got to get through it. I got a lot of hoops to jump through real quick.
It's hard to believe. I mean, our daughter just turned 7, so to think that you were in prison as long as she's been alive.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's
crazy.
To put, think of it from that perspective, it feels like a very long time.
It was the better part of the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, even to this day, people will tell me like a classic movie that they love, and if it was during the 90s, I don't know. I don't know what that is. I didn't see that. I mean, because we didn't get that.
Pretty Woman, 90s movie.
No, that was early 90s.
Yeah.
I saw Pretty Woman. There's a lot of little movies in between.
Yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head.
What about Bob and all these movies?
Oh, yes, yes.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so you called your mom from the cell phone, flip phone, which you had never seen before.
Yeah.
And then you had just gone to breakfast. Mm-hmm. Where were you heading next while you're making all these phone calls?
He had set up an appointment for me to meet with the pastor of the church. So we went there next. And these people were excited for me. You know, they were part of it, a big part of it. But I know I've talked about this before, but I was taken back my first, I guess, initial meeting with the pastor. He, whatever happened with Chris, Chris had been there the year before.
Chris was your best friend who got out before you.
Yeah, and he basically went to Shepherd's Flow like I did.
And he was supported by the same church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was his church.
Yeah.
But he had messed everything up.
Yes, you talked about that.
So he was messing around with him, and the worship leader got in a sexual relationship, and it turned,
Right.
everything went bad.
Right.
Everything went bad. So by the time I got there, the pastor there, he kind of had he was trying to draw hard lines with me.
He was kind of scorned, I guess. Is that the right word?
Yeah, well, what ended up happening after all that stuff happened with Chris, then he had to confront the stuff, and it ended up splitting his church. And, so he had been through a rough year with his church. And
okay, so you were going to meet him. He had set up an appointment.
yes, but he was very harsh with me.
Okay, during this meeting.
Yeah, and I was taken off guard from that because
Yeah.
he was basically letting me know if I was trying to run any game or do any of the things that Chris, blah blah blah, all that stuff. And it didn't totally bother me because I know who I am. I know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just weird. It was kind of a damper on the day.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now I feel like I gotta prove myself to this guy, but I didn't know what I had to prove myself for. Because I knew I wasn't going back to prison. I knew I wasn't going to get involved in crime. I knew I had Jesus. I knew that God had a plan for me. So that was a little bit of a downer. Mm-hmm. But I just felt like, well, he'll figure it out. He'll be fine. But he'd been through a rough.
Yeah, he had been hurt and also had to kind of deal with the aftermath of Chris's actions.
And by this time, he was still dealing with it.
Right.
Because it was just a mess. You know how churches and organizations are when they go through things. And, he was a guy coming out of prison that caused all this chaos, and now here's another guy coming out of prison.
Right, exactly.
So there was that. But we got through that. I was very, very excited about the church, though. It wasn't anything traditional. This would be my first church that I've ever been in, or be a part of. I've been in other churches.
Right.
But it wasn't like a big, like religious church, or, it was in a strip mall in Vestavia, and it had about 50, 100 chairs, a little...
How many?
50, 100.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I had more than 100. A little church office, a little place for the kids, and a little kitchen. It was just it was, just what I wanted.
Right.
It was, not part of a big religious organization. Mm-hmm. So I was happy to be there.
Okay, so you had the meeting at the church with the pastor. He was a little bit harsh, and then what did you do?
Then we went to Tommy's house. He was going to show me. He was going to show me where I was going to stay. And if you remember on my parole plan, he was signed up to be my practical
right. You just
person.
mentioned that earlier. Yeah,
he was going to help me with all the day-to-day stuff, and he wanted to. He owned his own business, so he could make his own schedule. He had a lot of free time, and then he was on staff at this church as an associate pastor.
Okay,
so he was just excited to be walking alongside me
to help. Yeah,
and really all the people at that church were too. It was neat. It was a neat time.
Yeah.
And I guess I was kind of taken back when we pulled into his neighborhood because it was he lived in Cahaba Heights, which was on the outskirts of Birmingham. Now it's actually part of Vestavia, but at that time it was just unincorporated Jefferson County. And it's behind the Summit on 280.
Okay, which is a big shopping center area.
Yeah. And just... the neighborhood, all these big houses, and then when we pulled up to his house, I was like, "This is your house?" Because it looked like a mansion. It was it was 2 stories, kind of tucked in a hill, yards and landscaping and flowers, and it was just beautiful.
You describe all that, and I think, because you didn't grow up in a house or neighborhood like that either, right?
No, my granny had a nice house in a nice neighborhood.
I'm just thinking you're coming from prison, being in a prison cell, to one of the nicest houses you've ever been. That, as far as I'm going to stay here, I'm going to sleep here.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah,
because this was it was nice. It was crazy.
What a contrast.
No, it was. I felt like Little Orphan Annie, coming in there, hey, I'm James.
Where do I need to start? Clean the floors?
I'm James from prison. But I'd met Tommy's wife, Brenda. I met her at a family night and at another event that they did, and I really liked her. She was, I guess she would be like an I on the disc profile. She's very sanguine, very bubbly, little ditzy.
People person, life of the party.
It's so fun. Like, but she like opened her arms and embraced me. Like I actually nicknamed her that first week. And the nickname is stuck now. It's been 20-something years later. I started calling her Mother Figure.
Mother Figure.
So that was her nickname. Man,
that just slides right off the tongue, doesn't it?
That was just
Mother Figure.
Just Mother Figure. So she would call me Son Figure. So, but it was, they had one daughter, Amy, and she was married and had a daughter, and she lived out in Clay or somewhere. Not close. She didn't live close. Mm-hmm. So it was just like it was almost like they adopted somebody because they allowed me to stay there on the weekends because I had to be at Shepherd's Fold Monday through Friday, but then I could go somewhere on the weekends. Mm-hmm. So they were like, gave me a key, like you can hang out here.
Stay here anytime.
So Friday night I would go, Sunday evening I would go back to Shepherd's Fold and do my thing. It was crazy.
Yeah,
it was fun, but the house was intimidating because when you walked in the front door, there was like this long winding staircase, you know, like something out of Gone with the Wind, and you know, just nice, expensive stuff. And this was the late 90s, so there was, you know, all those colors.
So this is random. What did Tommy do for a living? Like, what did they?
Tommy owned his own wallpaper business.
Okay.
So, gosh. If he were still alive, I bet he wouldn't have much business now.
Oh, is he not alive anymore?
No, he passed away about 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, what happened?
I think he had a heart attack.
Oh.
He was already retirement age 20 years ago. So they were on up there.
Yeah.
They were grandparents. But what was the question?
Sorry. Well, first I said, what did he do for a living? Because you were talking about the nice house.
Yeah, he did wallpaper stuff.
Yeah.
And then she worked for Vulcan Materials. I don't know what that was. It was some kind of something.
Yeah.
She did like office work. But they were just like injection of life for me. Mm-hmm. That it's hard to think like, I know I would have gotten through anything, but just to have like people like that. Because everybody was supportive of me, but not everybody's going to invite you into their home and
absolutely
give you a key to their house. You know, that's weird.
I mean, I don't think I do that right now.
No. Well, then there was one like little bit of a like that bothered me initially when we first got there. He told me that his parents lived in his basement. And he said, "We can't tell my mom and dad that you're coming from prison." And I was like, "What?" And I said, "Well, I'm not going to lie, you know, because you know how I am. I'm not going to be in a situation."
I'd be like, okay, that's fine. I completely understand.
No, but I'm not going to be in a situation like if I got to lie about something, I'm just not going to do it. Like I'm not going to. Because that stresses me out. Like I'm not, no.
Yes.
So he was like, "James, I'm not asking you to lie. I'm just asking you not to say you came out of prison." So I said, "Okay, we'll see. I guess we'll see how that works out." And it did. But I can tell that story later.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that came out of that a lot of truths that I didn't know at the time that I would learn as the days passed. But they took me in and he showed me where my room was going to be. And when he opened the door to the room, the bed, the floor, the dresser was flooded with clothes, cosmetics, underwear.
Cosmetics.
Like deodorant and shampoo.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I didn't have anything, Haley.
See, Haley, I guess you don't think of it when you don't know it to think that you didn't have any of that shampoo or anything like that.
I didn't have nothing. I had a prison ID in my paper sack.
Those are things you kind of take for granted, you know.
But they were so excited to show me. They were like, "This is all for you." Like the church has been doing this the last 3 months. They've been put together a campaign to get you set up for when you got out.
Oh, neat.
And, you know, for me, I had my vision that I wrote, and that was one of the things that was written in my vision was you're not going to have to worry about clothes. I don't want you worrying about none of that. I'm going to take care of all that stuff. And so, like later that night, I like pulled my vision, like, look, it's written in here. Like Jesus told me to write this, and here it is. And they were like, somebody was doing something because it was like the stuff just kept coming and just wouldn't stop. But it was, I literally didn't have to buy clothes for the first year I was out of prison.
Wow.
And I don't even know how they figured out my size, but everything fit. It was, some of it, they were like church clothes that were like somebody else's, but I didn't care.
No, yeah.
I'm coming from, my white prison uniform. So that
no
was
underwear. Yeah.
Yeah, that real underwear. I'd been wearing the prison boxers stitched up that were not comfortable for all that time. So it was a crazy day, crazy night, and then just to be able to sit and eat dinner and watch TV, and then the next morning to wake up and be like, this is real. Like this is really happening. Like I'm not in prison anymore. It was crazy. Like the freedom. I'm free. I'm really free. And they gave me a coffee cup that I still have that coffee cup to this day. It's in my downstairs kitchen.
Oh, really?
It says, it's got a little dog on it, a little dog like sitting on it. And it says, look out world, here I come.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah, I didn't realize where that came from. Well, tell me this though. Did you take a shower? Because I know those things are important to you. Did I take a shower?
Did I take it? That was one of the things that they commented on the most over the next few weeks was, gosh, you sure do stay in the bathroom a long time. But I had my own bathroom. Like I wasn't in their bathroom.
Right.
But it was like I was trying to explain to them, we didn't have bathrooms. We didn't have privacy. We didn't, I was ready to take a bath because I hadn't had a bath in 7 years. There's no bathtubs in prison. There's only prison showers. So it was amazing. The whole thing was amazing. And then to wake up and to be free and
to have your first coffee mug.
Well, to have coffee out of a machine, out of a coffee pot.
Yeah.
Because we had instant coffee. Like we would have to get hot water and you stir in that instant coffee.
So you had nothing but instant coffee for 7 years?
Yeah. Well, sometimes certain church groups will come in. They would do coffee in those big pots.
Yeah.
But it always tasted burned. Like it wasn't like making a pot of coffee.
Right.
It wasn't fresh.
It's funny those little things that, I don't think about that if it's never been taken away, then you kind of take for granted, I guess.
Oh, there's so many.
That it could be. Or you have a sweeter appreciation.
There's so many.
Going without it.
One of the things that I noted when I was in prison, like you never get to see the leaves fall because there's not trees on a prison compound because like a security risk. I mean, you can sometimes see them off in the distance, but it's not the same. You never get to walk in the leaves. You don't get to go out at night. Like there's no movement at night. And if they have to move you at night, they put like 2 or 3 officers around you. Mm-hmm. And so it's like a security thing. And then I remember one time I had to get moved at night at West Jefferson. I can't even remember what it was about. But I was outside. I don't remember why.
It was like the only time you were out at night?
No, there was
this one time you got moved, while in prison?
In Alabama. Yeah. But the guards up in the guard towers would put their lasers on you so that you could see, like the red dot on you, that if you try anything,
they would shoot you.
You're dead.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, I got moved some in the night when I was in Florida because I worked in the kitchen and I would do like 2:30 or 4:30 wake up. But there was always 5 or 6 guards like all around you. Like it wasn't, you couldn't just go for a walk at night.
It wasn't like you were enjoying the fresh night air.
No, but now, even to this day, and that's been, 20-something years ago, sometimes if I'm feeling ungrateful or grumpy, I'll open my front door and go for a walk. I mean, I might not go for a long walk. I might go to the mailbox and come back, but there's just something about being able to walk outside. Like, I'm free. I can look up. I can see the moon that God made, and there ain't no razor wire in between me and it. And it does something for me, and that's
neat.
That's even to this day. Like, freedom is, freedom.
You definitely have an appreciation for it. I mean, like I said, someone like me who's never, I've never not had freedom. But because of that, I've never thought about it.
Yeah.
I don't think about it in the same way that you do.
It's crazy. But the food was the biggest thing for me. Like,
what did you eat for dinner that night? Did I ask you that?
I don't think I can remember. The rest of that day was a blur.
Yeah.
It was, we was eating. I remember the biggest thing for me was that I noted was that we could snack. Like they had a little den, sit in there and watch TV and eat chips. And I thought that was neat. And then he had a computer and, he was trying to get down to business with me that first night. And he was like, we're going to need to set you up an email address. And I was like, what is that? Like, I don't,
oh yeah.
What does that mean? Like, what?
That did all come to pass like in the 90s.
I don't know what that is. in prison, we would see commercials or like on the news where they talked about the World Wide Web or the internet.
Yeah.
Or Yahoo or America Online. And we didn't know what that meant. We didn't understand it. Like, we didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
And then he wanted me to have an email address, and he explained to me, like, when you go for job interviews, they're going to want, and I was like, what for? For what? And so he helped me set up my first email address. It was jkj5372@aol.com, and I would keep that for the next 10 or so years till AOL, till Gmail came around.
Right.
After we set it up, I was like, okay, now what do I do with it? Like, and he was like, well, you can send emails. And then, so he started sending me emails, and I would open the emails, and it like had some words. I was like, but you're sitting right here. It's something, I don't understand the concept. I'm not getting the concept. So it took me a minute. Then he tried to show me what the internet was, and it was the dial-up, dong, dong, dong.
Yeah.
And I just, like, this is not productive. Like, I'm good.
Little did you know.
I'm good with books. Just let me. I'll just use my books.
You are a late adapter, though. Even to this day, I feel like. So I can imagine everything coming at once. Like everything was.
I didn't want it.
Just a lot of things at one time.
I didn't want it. I wasn't interested in it. But then, the next day, waking up, making coffee, making breakfast. Like, I get to cook breakfast. I can cook my own eggs and toast and all this stuff. It was crazy. But then we had to get down. It was. The second day was business day. Mm-hmm. Like, we had a deep list of things that we had to go through. They gave you like a parole packet when you left of all the things that you would have to do.
Right.
And then my Aunt Sue, she was always in charge of all my legal stuff, the whole time that I was gone. And she pretty much went through and, made the list and sent it to Tom, like, he's got to do all these things. These are all the things that have to happen on the first day or the second day. So we had to dive in, deal with that. I had to report to my parole officer. I had to register as a convicted felon at the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department. I had to go check in at Shepherd's Fold, get all the rules and all the things. But the first stop was the parole office.
Okay. And that's where you met your parole officer. Mm-hmm. So what does that look like?
Well, going in there, there was probably about 30 guys sitting out in the waiting to get in. Mm-hmm. And, I'm only one day out of prison, so and these are guys coming out of prison too, or, at least acquainted with the criminal justice system.
Right.
So I know how to talk to guys like that. I mean, I still do to this day. If I go back in prison, I know how to, tell, what's really happening.
Yeah.
So they were asking me, who did I get? And I showed them the name. And they were like, "Oh no, you got Linda O'Brien. She's the worst one. Like she's a hard ass. She's the one. Whew, good luck."
What makes her the worst? Just that she's a hard ass, like you said, or
I didn't know. I didn't know anything about it. They were just telling me. Like there's 12 or 15 parole officers, and apparently I got the doozy.
And what is the role or the job of the parole officer? Like, what's the point there?
You report to them, and they're basically, when you're on parole, they're in charge of you. They can arrest you. They can put handcuffs on you and take you to jail.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because when you make parole, you're out, you're free. Mm-hmm. But you belong to them until you complete the parole, because technically you're still a prisoner on parole. But I kind of got a little nervous when they started talking about how bad she was. But then in my vision, I wrote down that your parole officer will be to you a part of, fulfilling God's plan for your life. Your parole officer is going to play a big part in that. And it was written there. So,
like they were going to be your advocate, or?
I can't remember the exact wording. I could come back. It said, you will have favor with your parole officer, and he or her will be a big part of...
Oh, you'll have favor with. Okay.
Yeah. And it said he or she will be a big part of fulfilling my plan for your life, is what Jesus told me to write down. And so I was kind of nervous, but then I had that. So I was like, I can get through this. So when I got in there and I met her, they were right. She was all business. She was not, there was no warm fuzzies, no fun and games. It was all business. And she started telling me all the things, and I just took out my notepad and started taking notes. Whatever I need to do, I'm going to do it. But it was a little overwhelming, but at the same time, I felt like if I can get through prison, I can get through whatever she's needing me to do.
Right.
So it's basically she was telling me like when I reported, the fees, how you paid stuff, how drug tests, like all the things and anything. How did she say it? She said, you're free and you can go walk down the sidewalk like anybody else, but you're not free like other people because you have this hanging over you. So anything you do I can send you back to prison. So if I can come to your house, I can come to your job, I can, anything. And they have that power. Basically, you belong to them and there's nothing you can do except whatever they want you to do.
Right.
So she gave me this big list and she was very like harsh with me. Like I'm not playing games with you. And everything she told me, I wrote it down, because I wanted to know. I needed to know. And then I gave her my parole plan, and she was like, what is that? And I said, it's my parole plan. It's why they let me out on parole. Like, these are all the things I'm doing.
Right, the things that you agreed to do in different areas.
Yeah, and all the people I was going to be accountable to.
Right.
And she, pulled it over. She, looked at it, and she read it. And then she just kind of went like... And she said, this is signed by Steve Longenecker. And I said, yes, ma'am. He's one of my mentors. And she slid it back to me and she said, let him handle that. I'm not going to be doing that. So
that was irrelevant for her. Like, she didn't care about that, even though that was part of what got you out.
I think I understand now. Like, that's not what I'm doing. And she just wasn't going to be... She wasn't going to give herself all the extra work.
Right, okay.
Which I understand that now. But she didn't tell me not to do it. She just said, let Steve be the one to handle all that.
Right. So what was the hardest thing of all the things that she told you of, things that you had to do or keep up with or whatever?
The worst for me that first day, really the first month or so, was they put you on a thing called task.
I don't know what that is.
It's a color-coded... it's a thing for people coming out of prison or people on probation or people that are going to drug court. Drug court's when you got in trouble with drugs. Mm-hmm. It's like a diversion to prison. So they put them on this thing where you call in every day. You have a color.
Okay.
So every day you have to call the number and it says, today, the color for today is blue. So if your color's blue, it means you got to get down there and pee in the cup. Does that make sense?
Oh.
And there were so many cups. My color was fuchsia. I'll never forget my color.
Fuchsia.
But the way she explained it to me was, you have to call this every day. And if your color comes up...
So if they say your color when you call...
Yeah, you got to go. But it's not... You can't have the excuse that you forgot to call, because if your color comes up and you don't go, you're dirty. And so that freaked me out. Like, I ain't going back to prison over some... nonsense like that.
Dirty meaning?
A positive drug test. Okay. Like, I've been using drugs.
So if you didn't go, it would just automatically...
You're automatically dirty if you don't go. So what ended up happening was I was so paranoid about that I took Post-it notes.
I can see you, babe.
I had Post-it notes. I put Post-it notes on my lamp next to my bed at Shepherd's Fold, over the bed, on the mirror where I brush my teeth, on my toothpaste. I had them everywhere, just in case I were to wake up and be fuzzy and, wake up late. I had those little sticky notes everywhere to remind me to call, and it was so hard. And then, if they called your color, you'd have to go down there and do the drug test, but there might be 30 people in front of you, so you might waste 4 hours of your day down there.
But you had to do it. There was no choice.
I mean, I was going to do whatever they told me to do.
Yeah.
But after I think it was the second month, because I had to go see her once a month, unless she, came to see me, because they want to see where you work. They want to, they're on you.
Yeah.
I went in and I said, ma'am, I know this is going to sound like I'm trying to get out of something, but this task thing is bondage to me. And she was like, bondage? And I was like, it's ruining my life. Like, I can't function in the morning until I know that my number hasn't been called. And even when my color comes up and I have to go down, then the last time I had to go down, I was late for work because you have to wait. And I said, I promise you, I will come pee in a cup for you anytime, day or night, 24 hours a day, if we can figure out a better way to do this, because this is bad. This is hurting me. And she leaned back in her chair, and she said, "Okay, we'll be done with that." And I was like, "Just like that?" She said, "Yes." But then...
You have not because you asked not.
But later on, she told me, she said, "I've been a parole officer for 18 years. And when you came in my office and you started taking notes of the things that I was telling you, that was the first time that's ever happened." There's never been anybody.
That's hard to believe, though, really, for me. Like, thinking someone coming out of prison, you would think that everyone has the want to stay out of prison. And, like, let me just make sure I'm...
Well, I was just serious about my freedom.
Right.
Because they can... Any technical violation... I mean, but I'd seen guys come back to prison for stupid stuff.
Right, exactly.
Just for, like, moving. Like, if you live somewhere and if you move somewhere else and you don't tell them, then that's a violation. Or if you step over a state line... That's a violation.
Really?
Yeah, like I couldn't even go see my granny unless I got a...
oh, wow.
You have to get a traveling pass. Like you have to go down there, you have to get it stamped and signed.
So if you were to just take a little weekend trip and forget to tell them you'd go back to prison, even if you just went...
Technically, you could.
Wow.
And, I had to do that for 13 years.
Wow.
12 years. Anytime
just
I left.
Make sure that, like, you mean you couldn't leave the state without letting your parole officer
You have
know?
it has to be documented in case you get pulled over by law enforcement. Because
wow.
if you get pulled over for speeding and they run you that you're on parole and you don't have a parole pass, it's crazy.
You're still uber paranoid about getting pulled over, like, for speeding, like, basic things.
I don't like, I love law enforcement. They're here to protect me.
I mean, I don't blame you, but it's just funny. Once again, you have like a different lens and perspective and like
they can,
a viewpoint of it.
They can do that. But she ended up being really one of my biggest fans and one of the people, just like the vision said, that actually helped me get to my next place.
Well, can I tell my introduction and just like viewpoint of that parole officer, Linda?
You've been on parole?
No, not your parole officer. We were married and had Lula, and on social media, you just notice when the same people like things and comment things.
Yeah.
And I noticed, this woman named Linda kept liking, loving, commenting, but she would say very like generous and like nice things about our kids, but mainly you too. Like, man, you sure did hit the jackpot. You did get a good one. Yes, you did. Like, just very encouraging. And you could tell, she was a huge fan of you.
Yeah.
And finally I was like, who is this Linda person that always coming on my social media now? And you're like, oh, that was my parole officer. So it is so neat to me that y'all are actually still connected to this day. And she continues.
She's retired. She's not a parole officer anymore.
Right, but she continues to be one of your biggest fans and now encouragers just in life in general. And it's just kind of neat.
And I genuinely love her. Like there was never any crossing the line between professional. Like she was always very professional. I remember my second or third year I was out of prison, I gave her a gift certificate to Leonardo's. Mm-hmm.
Which is the restaurant you worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she had to give it back, like, and explain, we can come and eat and do all, but like that, it's like an ethical like line.
Oh, okay.
So she was always 100% professional, but she was also 100% in my corner, and she's always been my biggest fan. And but I tell guys this now, the guys, working with guys coming out of prison, is because she had been burned so many times. Like these parole officers.
Kind of like the pastor.
Yeah, they've been burned so many times. Yeah. It's not... And I'll say this quick. I don't want to get too hung up in this, but we get feedback from all across the nation. Mm-hmm. And there's a lady she said she was a federal parole officer.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say her name. I'll probably mess it up if I say it anymore. But I got a message on social media from her. But she said that she uses this podcast as her devotional or inspiration to get through the week, to knowing that somebody can do something different and she can make a difference and her job can matter.
Oh, that's neat.
So, if we do stuff like that with this podcast, then I'm happy. I'm good. But I tell guys, like, even if they're hard, do what they tell you to do, and they'll end up in your corner, because she ended up in my corner. Like
right.
And we'll talk about it later, but she went to bat for me several times.
But you really did. You were really, from everything you're saying and just what I know about you, making an effort to do things the right way.
Well, I wanted to be free.
Right. But
I wanted to stay free.
Yeah, but there's more people like you out there, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, but I don't think anybody
No, but I
wants
think
to be...
in news and social media, you don't hear those stories as much as you hear the other stories.
That's true.
So,
well, I don't think it's so much a matter of people not wanting to be free or not wanting to stay free, because nobody wants to be in prison.
Mm-hmm.
It's understanding the tools and the things that you need to do. Like there's work on your part. There's things you got to do.
Right.
And, you know, we can say it now. We're launching a separate podcast, a companion podcast to the Straight Out of Prison podcast. We're going to call it Into the Unknown, where we're going to see if it works with just me on it, but it's going to be more of like lessons that I learned and stuff like that. Keep it short, 25, 30 minutes. And just all the things that I've learned since then and going through, because there's a lot of
lesson nuggets.
Yeah. I mean, just like feeling sorry for yourself. That's one of the biggest enemies of people coming out of prison, because when you feel sorry for yourself, you can't move forward, and then you wind up right back where you're from.
Right.
Or, being committed to not being a criminal, or being committed to, for me, Jesus, committed to the plan.
Right.
And committed to my parole plan.
Whatever it is you're committed to.
Yeah. And there's, we could probably, once we start that podcast, we may not ever stop. I mean, because I'm, I've learned something with every season of life. Like,
when I think too, that it's worth revisiting. I mean, I feel like I've learned that, like the things that I know I need to do and the wisdom and lessons, like I learn them, I know them, I do them. And then I get to another season of life, and then I'm just like, wait a minute, I stopped doing that, or I need to be reminded. Yeah. And they need to be on repeat. Some things just need to be on repeat.
And it's usually not complicated stuff. Like, right. It's simple stuff. It's not anything even that's going to take a lot of effort. It's just...
Well, it's like the simple stuff, like you had your notebook and we're taking notes to remind yourself of what you need to do. I mean, it's just so simple. Usually.
I didn't want to forget.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm making the point.
No, I'm like, we can gamble. We can gamble with other stuff, but I'm not gambling with my freedom.
Right.
I'm taking my freedom. I'm taking my freedom serious, because sad to say, but 7 out of 10 guys coming out of prison go back.
Right.
Within the first year, they go back. And if I'm going back, it's going to be to be an encouragement. It's not going to be not going to be like that. And nobody wants to go back.
Yeah.
So
let's pick back up. You met your parole officer. I mean, I guess you kind of fast forward a little bit with the task thing, and then you got off the task.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we're still on day 2.
Yeah.
So got through the parole officer, I could tell she meant business. But at the same time, I knew I meant business too. So we're gonna have a good relationship. And the reason why I know we're gonna have a good relationship is because it's written in my vision.
Because I'm gonna do exactly what you tell me to do.
No, I was, but it was also written in my vision that this was gonna be a different kind of a relationship. And I showed her that maybe it might have been 4 or 5 years later. I made a copy of that page of my vision and I put it in the Christmas card, because she was only with me for like 4 or 5 years. She got promoted to. She was over all the parole officers. She was the boss. So, but she was still always in my corner.
That's awesome.
And she was good. The way she treated me, like when she would come and do a home visit, because she was required. Yeah. Like when I got my first apartment, she was required, and I invited her in, and she was like, "I don't have to come in," and I said, "Well, I'm not mad. I know you got to do what you got to do." But she would never, like, she was never harsh. She never pushed. She never made me feel less than. But she always let me know, James, you're on parole. Just be careful. Pay attention. Like you had to give them your check stubs, show how much money you made. You had a drug test. If I moved, I had to let them know. Any kind of leaving the state, I had to get permission, special permission. But she made it. Once she found out that I meant business, that I was going to do the right thing, then she was in my corner.
Yeah.
She helped me with so many things, but we can get into that later. But I'm very grateful for her. She's one of those people,
That's awesome.
But then I guess when we left there, we had to go, there's a law, and if you don't, I don't even know if it's still a law, but back in that day, like it was a big deal. Like you have to register with the sheriff's office as a convicted felon, and they give you a convicted felon ID that you have to put in your wallet, And if you ever get pulled over by a law enforcement officer, you're supposed to present that first.
It's like the scarlet letter.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if it's still a law. I still have it. I keep it in my car. I don't keep it in my wallet. Like I
want to see it.
I'll show it to you.
Maybe you can put that on the Patreon page too.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
It's is what it is. But got down to the sheriff's department. Let me back up. No, never mind. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
We'll do that another day. I just want to tell about Walter when he came to pick me up and took me at night for a ride through downtown Birmingham.
Who's Walter?
He was one of the Catholic guys that was on my parole plan.
Oh,
he was my substance abuse connection sponsor.
Yeah.
Just seeing Birmingham, like
at night.
This is the big city. Yeah. This is the big city. Like I'm in, I'm Little Orphan Annie.
Well, it was your equivalent to New York, I guess.
Yeah, and it felt like
from
it.
Phoenix City.
It felt like it. It was crazy. But going to the sheriff, where I come from, the sheriff's office was like a little hole-in-the-wall place.
Yeah.
Well, the sheriff's office in downtown Birmingham is like next to skyscrapers.
Like Grand Central Station.
Yes, and they got like a statue of a slave out in front, and it was a lot to try to take in. And then I went in, I waited my turn, I told them what I was there for. And then she gave me the papers. It was a sweet older lady behind the desk. She gave me the papers, and she told me to read it before I filled out the stuff. So I read it, and it said, you can't go within 100 feet of a school. You can't.
Oh, wow.
You can't go within anywhere there's kids. Like, it was just all this.
I thought that was just
crazy.
For sex offenders, no?
It was Well, I started reading it, and it was like 15, 20 things, and it was like, I can't go nowhere. I started crying. And she said, baby, what's the matter? And I said, I don't know. I can't do it. It's just saying I can't do nothing.
Feels overwhelming.
And she said, baby, do you have a sex crime? And I said, no, ma'am. She said, flip it over. You're reading the wrong side of the paper. That's for the sex crime. So I was like, thank you, Jesus. Like, but I don't see how they make it. Like, I don't see. It was a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard to.
But we got through that. They took my picture, gave me my. After reading that, I was like, oh, I can do this. It was basically...
Talk about perspective. You start from one end.
It basically said you couldn't have a gun. I mean, I don't even want a gun, so I'm good. But that was, I guess, the second part of my morning. Mm-hmm. And then let's just do the third part of this second day. So my next place that I went, Tommy had gotten... He was wallpapering somebody's bathroom in some condominiums on Rocky Ridge Road, which is a nice part of town where we come from. And as he was wallpapering, the lady was asking him questions. He was telling her about his, gig as associate pastor. And for some reason, he told her about me and, this guy that he was working with that was coming out of prison. And she was the general manager of Rossi's Italian restaurant on 280 in Birmingham. And they were going through a relaunch where they had like gutted the building, redid the menu, got a chef from Italy, or actually two chefs from Italy.
Oh, wow.
They were building out a new wait staff, but it was fine dining. It was banquets. And I had been in the restaurant business all my life. I knew how to cook, but I was always intimidated by the service side. Waiting on people, and
being a server.
Yeah. And I wanted to learn that side of the business, and I knew I wanted to make a lot of money because they made more money.
Yeah.
So that was my plan. I was going to learn how to wait tables. Even if I only did it for 6 months or a year, I was going to conquer that because I was so, like, I felt like it was something I couldn't do, but I decided that I was going to do what I couldn't do so that I knew that I could. And he had told her about me, and she said, well, when he gets out, bring him and let me talk to him. So that was where we went. That was our next stop.
Oh, wow. So that was on the second day.
Second day. We went to Rossi's in Birmingham. I talked to her and her husband, Pat. They were like co-managers, and the dining room manager, his name was Nabil. Nabil. He was from Israel, but he wasn't Jewish. He was like Palestinian, I guess. And they didn't even make me fill an application. And I was just honest about, everything. Didn't hide anything. And they told me to be there tomorrow night.
Here's the deal. I just got out of prison 2 days ago.
No, 1 day ago.
1 day ago.
I got out of prison yesterday morning.
Nice to meet you.
This is Tuesday around lunchtime. I got out of prison yesterday morning.
That is so funny.
2 days ago, I was at West Jefferson.
I can just envision that conversation. Let me just break this down for you.
Well, I didn't want to. No, but he had already told her the backstory, so they already knew.
Yeah.
And but this was a nice place. This was like the Hilton Hotel. Remember I told you I worked at the Chattahoochee River Club? My last job with Patrick?
Yes.
This was on that same level. It was fine dining. It was not.
So you went from West Jefferson prison cell to fine dining.
Well, and it was neat because the timing of it was so neat because they were putting together their new wait staff because they had been closed down for 2 or 3 months.
So it was like starting new. I mean, they were starting new.
They were 2 weeks out from their grand reopening, and that was the 2 weeks they were going to take to train their wait staff.
Oh, wow.
They had already trained their kitchen staff, everything, but they hired me.
Wow.
And so I got a job. And not just that I got a job, but it was a job I wanted. Like I wanted to learn how to wait tables. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I could make money at it. And I needed, because I don't know if we talked about this, but I had about $45,000 worth of fines that I had to deal with.
We've talked about that there was restitution, but I didn't know that there was $45,000. Good Lord.
Yeah, it was crazy. And it was to different municipalities. So I had one I had to do for Florida, one for Montgomery, one for Shelby County. The first letter that I got from the state of Florida, my fees for the month were almost $300 a month. And then I had to pay $30 a month to be on parole. I had to pay $30 a month to Montgomery. I had to pay $30 a month to Shelby County. So I panicked when I saw, like, how can I live? Like, that's a lot of money.
So how much should you have to pay a month at that point?
Originally, it was like $500 a month.
Oh, wow.
That was just my stay out of jail card. But I was I think it was my second time I met with Linda O'Brien. I was like, this seems unreasonable. And so she pulled some strings. She got it fixed. She waived her fee, so I didn't have to pay her fee. She got it down to the least that she could get it down to was I had to pay Florida $75 a month, and then $10 a month to Shelby County, $20 a month to Montgomery, which made it like around $100 a month.
See, to me, this speaks to why so many people go back into prison, because if you have this amount of money you have to pay every month, and I can imagine most people were not like you, and then just defaulted because it's like, how am I going to do that? I'll do my best.
I paid that before I paid anything.
But it speaks to what I was going to say is the communication line and keeping that open, and you going to her and saying, okay, I want to do this. I want to do exactly what I'm supposed to do, but
I just didn't see how.
Right, exactly. But her being able to help you because you communicated that instead of just defaulting.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't default. If I defaulted, they'd lock me back up.
Which is why so many people go back, is the point I'm making.
It's crazy. If you ever get tangled up in the criminal justice system in America, unless you got like a rich dad or something that can buy your way out of it.
Right.
I mean, I shouldn't say that. That sounds harsh. But it is. A lot of times it comes down to money.
Yeah.
It's hard to get out.
Yeah.
And from the time I started in 1993, my final deal with them was May of 2012, when it was all over forever.
Golly.
So that's what,
and then
12
we met in May 2012.
No, we met in November 2012.
No, we went on our first date in November 2012.
Okay. I don't know.
Anyway, that's a long time.
Yeah. We didn't meet. We met in April of 2012. That's when Open Kairos. We digress. Yeah. But anyway, all I'm saying is that you're getting around, when you get in trouble and you get tangled into this system, it takes forever to get untangled and get out of it. Yeah. It's not an easy task. And
even in your case, you're like trying to do everything right and really, really trying.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we'll talk about that more. There was, I had a lot of, parole was not hard, but it also wasn't easy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I counted up one time. So I've had to come down here physically put my body in downtown Birmingham once a month for 12 years. I had the number one time, like how many times I had to ride down there. But it's what you got to do. I just made it. It's just what I got to do. Mm-hmm. Do what I got to do. Got to stay free.
So you got a job.
Second day, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Started on the third day. And then, met my parole officer, did my prison felony card thing, note that, got a job. Then it's time to go to Shepherd's Fold, but I guess we'll make that be the next episode.
But still day 2, so you went to Shepherd's Fold day 2.
Later in the afternoon. It was my first day there. It was not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
But it was part of the process. So here we go.
Here we go.
All right, well, guys, this has been good. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. But just remember, freedom, it comes with a price. Like you got to do what you got to do to stay free.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll see you next time, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Hey, guys, thanks so much for tuning in to the Straight Outta Prison podcast. For more exclusive content, head over to our website, teamjones.co/podcast.
Yes, you can subscribe by clicking on the Become a Patron button, and that's going to get you access to our For Real Reel, which is very different than the Highlight Reel. Some very juicy content there.
Good stuff. Or you can look us up on Facebook and Instagram, Straight Outta Prison Podcast.
Yes, that takes the story to a whole new level where you can see some of the people that James talks about in his story and see some of the places that he's been. I've been loving it, and you will too.
Prison recipes.
Yeah, all the things.
Good stuff. We'll see you soon, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Getting anything out of these videos, please hit the like button, the subscribe. If you never want to miss a recipe or anything I do, hit the little bell and you'll get notifications.